All right, good morning, Alley Captains. Can I get a good morning? I love the energy and enthusiasm. Again, welcome to the first ever that we know of Alley Captain Conference. So a couple things real quick is that this is going to be a full house. So there will be people coming in here. We had almost 100 people RSVP for the Alley Captain Conference, so thank you very much. There's coffee in the back. Bathrooms are right outside this door. And we're going to move really quick here. On the back corner there are materials, resources that some of our Alley Captains and our panelists that will be in the next presentation have provided. Please take one or two of those. We will put all of them online on the website for everybody to access, even all the people who aren't here as well. We've had a lot of people who've asked for those materials, so they will be online. We are recording this, and these presentations will also be available online, and we are live streaming this. So again, welcome to those folks online. So to kick it off, I would like to welcome up our Public Works Director, Sean Kershaw.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks to all of you for being here. One of the things that I'll say over and over again, and it's true, is that snow is social. And it's true. I mean, you see the big trucks outside, you know, it is big trucks and it's physics and it's chemistry. But in a city like St. Paul, it's social. We need all of you, you know, to help your neighbors understand what do you do with your sidewalks, when do you move your cars, how do you keep the alleys clean. Winter works when it's social. I also want you to know that we're approaching this very differently as we look at snow operations in the coming years in the city. Downstairs, two of the people that checked you in were the library director, the director of safety and inspection. We've got Shane here from Fleet. The mayor has asked all of us as directors throughout the city to work together on snow operations. So you will see cooperation like you've never seen before on the city's side of it. But obviously, snow doesn't work without the cooperation that you make possible in your neighborhoods. And so we're really excited for your leadership, your ability to learn from each other, your ability to help us learn how we can do our work better. I want to give a huge shout out to Lisa and to Jeanette and to Kate who pulled this together. This came from Lisa's brain. She's phenomenal on communications. All of this happened. I'm showing up, but yeah, huge thanks to Lisa for making this possible. So please learn from each other, get to know each other, enjoy the day. We're really excited about this, and I'm going to let you get right into it.
Thanks a lot, Sean. Again, welcome. My name is Lisa Hebert. I am the Public Information Officer and Public Services Manager for Public Works. So one of my big roles is to oversee all the city's communications. When you get those wonderful text alerts that we've declared a snow emergency, updates on the website, social media, that is myself and Jeanette and Kate in Public Works doing all of that. So again, and we appreciate when all of you, our residents, jump in there and also share and pass along that information. So I just also wanted to say, you know, again, thank you for being here, and thank you for being Alley Captains. This is a really important, or being interested in becoming an Alley Captain, because, you know, Sean, one of the things that we kind of have talked about is that in the wintertime in St. Paul, it is really Team St. Plow. You might see a little hashtag about that here and there, because really one of the things that we learned from last year, which was a tough winter for all of us, is that really, again, we need to work with one another and understanding how we can do that better. And I think that starts with all of you being here today. So thank you for sharing your day with us today at the Alley Captain Conference and the rest of the Snow Summit a little bit later. Again, we working together to keep our streets and our sidewalks safe and passable all year round. And I have to also say that you guys have a ton of energy, and when we put this out on social, the number of people who step forward, our panelists, people sharing their materials, people who are excited to be here, we've gotten so much enthusiasm. And again, the people who can't be here are like, how can I see the video? How can I get the materials? I want to know, I want to connect. So thank you again for your enthusiasm with all of this. So this presentation is Snow 101, and we're going to talk a little bit about our snow operations because I think it's really important, and I know you as alley captains typically know probably much more than our average residents. And I think it's really important because you guys are also our communicators. You're connecting with your neighbors and can help spread this information because there's a lot of good information that's out there that's correct, and there's also some information in myths and miscommunications that we can also hopefully answer all your questions today and make sure people understand how the city, how we do our snow operations, and how we can work better together. So again, this is usually typically an hour-long presentation, and I'm going to apologize right now. I'm going to go a little fast. I have a lot of slides, and so I'm going to skip some slides because this PowerPoint will be online. And there's more information that I may not touch on because the most important thing that I really want to get today is your questions, whether they're online or here. So I want to make sure that I'm leaving time to get your questions to make sure all those burning questions get answered. And if I don't answer them here today, we will get them answered for you. So let's just jump right into it, shall we? So let's talk about this past year. It was a tough one, right? For everyone. And here's some stats, and there's a sign over on the wall there. The biggest thing that we all may know, is we had more than 90 inches of snow. And that's almost double what we typically get in St. Paul. And it was the third snowiest winter on record. And it was actually the most precipitation we had ever. Because if people remember, we had a lot of rain in the middle of winter too, which was a little unusual. We had 44 winter weather events, which I'll explain a little bit what a weather event is, 7 snow emergencies, and of course, this year we had a one-sided parking ban because of all of the snow. This slide basically is our ticketing and towing. I will say that this is probably the #1 complaint that we hear all winter long. And as alley captains, you know when people don't move their cars, it's hard for you, your private plow contractor, and certainly our city staff to plow the streets curb to curb. And one car can screw up the whole block and the whole neighborhood, unfortunately, for the winter. So we really do a lot of ticketing and towing. And last year, we ticketed over 20,600 cars and towed nearly 5,000. From communications and engagement, we really, again, try to work with all of our residents to let people know how we do snow emergencies when we declare them and what people need to do. Basically, when and where they need to move their cars, right? And with that, we had the #1 webpage on our website is stpaul.gov/snow. And that's where you will find all the resources, all the information, and all the updates. And last year, we sent out over 1 million texts and emails about our snow emergencies. So, and also we do, just a little plug, we will do this presentation for any groups. So if there's any faith organizations, community groups, and you want us to come out and talk about snow, we're happy to talk about snow. So please let us know and invite us out. And we really want to engage with as many residents and businesses in the community as we can. Oops. So what's really changed? This slide is really just to talk about the macros. So one of the things that we're seeing is climate change is having an effect on the weather that we're having in Minnesota and how we have to plow the streets and what we're dealing with. We're also seeing increase of on-street parking demands and needs, traffic volumes, patterns, driving behaviors, our staffing. So there's a lot of these large systematic macros that are working on our work and your work as alley captains. So we just wanted to acknowledge that these larger, bigger things that are affecting all of our operations, what we do all winter long. So let's jump into some of the questions that we hear. And one of the questions is, what is our current standard for plowing? So up here, and I know this might be a little tough for people to see, but we do have, really for winter, we have 2 different types of streets, right? We have our arterial or collector streets, and these are the main streets throughout the city. And these are really important because this helps people get in, out, and around St. Paul. So our arterial streets, these streets are plowed whenever we have a winter event. So if we're going to get a little bit, the temperature is going to drop, we need to brine the bridge decks. If we're going to get a little bit of precipitation, our trucks and our plows will always be out on our arterial streets. And we will plow them to bare pavement and try to get it to bare pavement in the parking lanes. So drive lanes to bare pavement, parking lanes as bare as we can get them. So that's kind of this bottom picture down here. The second streets are really the residential streets. In residential streets, it is safe and passable as our standard. And that does mean that there's snow and some ice pack is acceptable. And so this first one, this picture over here, you can kind of see nice and clear, no parked cars, pushing it back to the curb. That's about as great as you're going to see our residential streets. We'll get them better if we can, but that is definitely the residential streets. And you can see the picture up there where the cars are parked, and unfortunately our plows have to go around it and leave those big windrows. So that's, again, the problem, which I know all of you know all about that. On residential streets, we do not salt residential streets. We'll talk about salt in a little bit, but we do salt hills and curves, and we will salt intersections on residential streets. So when do we send out the plows, and how many do we send out? So this is getting into what we call winter events. So as I said, a winter event is anything we need to do where we're sending out crews from Public Works to deal with any conditions on the streets. Again, it can be a very small thing where we're just anti-icing or brining bridge decks or streets. And again, the anti-icing is you usually see the white stripes down the middle of the streets. Kind of a medium event is when we get anywhere from 10 to 30 plows out across the city. And this is when we're going to be doing some plowing on some arterial streets and keeping that snow off the streets, those arterial streets. The large events end up when we start really pulling in our full fleet and when we declare a snow emergency. So we have about 80 staff people in our Public Works Street Maintenance Division that take care of the streets. And if you don't know, in the winter they're also plowing, but when they're not plowing, they are pothole patching. So they are very busy all winter long in our Public Works street maintenance. But when we have these larger events and snow emergencies, we actually call in our friends from Parks, Forestry, as well as our sewer division and some of our folks in traffic operations. These individuals hold the CDLs and are able to drive our big tandem trucks. So again, really important for people to understand that the city is not staffed for the snow emergency levels. So again, those are kind of the three kind of types of winter events. And you can see that it's fluid and it will change as weather conditions warrant. So what are we responsible for in Public Works? Well, there's about 1,800 lane miles, and it breaks down to, we also plow county and state roads in the city of St. Paul here. Other places that's done by the city or the county or the state, but we plow them here in St. Paul. And again, that is about 1,800 lane miles. We also handle over 180 bridge sidewalks, city sidewalks, medians, public staircases, about 100 bridges in St. Paul. And about 150 miles of bike lane. That's not including the bike lane that Parks takes care of, because Public Works takes care of some of it. Parks takes care of some of the bike trails. And one number that I want to point out to you is that the city has 2,225 alleys in the city, which is about 330 miles. And I know you know that. And they're all different shapes, right? You've got the L's, you got the dead ends, you got the H's, you got the T's, you got the S's and the C's. So there's all different alley types. No two alleys are really alike in St. Paul. Now I'm preaching to the choir on that one. So how much does a snow emergency cost? A snow emergency costs anywhere from about $400,000 to $800,000. And that really kind of depends on the weather event and honestly kind of also when it happens. So there's a lot of conditions that affect that. We budget for 4 snow emergencies a year, and I want to be very clear on this point. Just because we budget for 4 does not mean we won't plow. We will plow as much as the conditions warrant. It is a public safety issue, and so we will plow as much as needed. And obviously last year with 7 snow emergencies, we did a lot of plowing last year. I know you all did too, on shoveling. So I just wanted to point that out. So staffing, I talked a little bit about staffing, and I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but again, for the regular operations throughout the winter, it really is public works, street maintenance, parks with some trails and things like that. The larger winter events, we're pulling in our right-of-way division, we're pulling in because they're doing the ticketing and towing efforts, we're pulling in our sewers, our traffic operations, our forestry division, things like that. So it really becomes a city all hands on deck. And you can kind of see how this will grow. It's up there, but I'm going to kind of skip through this one quickly. So when do we declare a snow emergency? Whenever we want. Not quite exactly that easy. Typically, we declare a snow emergency when we have an accumulation of 3 inches or more. And I want to be really clear that this is 3 inches on the streets. The roads are usually a different temperature, so you may have 4 inches in your yard, and it only maybe an inch on the street. So one thing that people don't know is that our staff actually get in their trucks and drive around the city with a measuring tape. And we actually are measuring and taking depths throughout the city, because what falls on the east side doesn't necessarily what falls in Highland Park or the north end or the west side. Snow does not fall equally across our city. And so we are taking those actual measurements before we declare a snow emergency, and we're kind of checking that. We use a lot of systems, and we have a lot of services to kind of tell us what kind of weather conditions are coming in. Sean likes to geek out with that. It is pretty interesting. So we are pulling all of our resources. In addition to that, typically that 3-inch threshold, we're kind of thinking past, present, and future. So what were we just dealing with? What are we dealing with right now? And what's coming? And that's really important, because we're also taking in air temperature, road temperature, the type of snow. Is it going to be a wet, heavy snow? Is it going to be a dry, fluffy snow? Is it going to rain before it snows? All these conditions go into it. And I also want to let you know, we are also talking with all of our partners. So we are in communications with the City of Minneapolis, we're in communications with the St. Paul Public School District, we're in communications with the county and our state partners. So we are in this regular communication, and everybody's kind of watching and waiting and working together on that. So there is a lot of communication that goes on before we declare a snow emergency. It is at the discretion of Sean, our Public Works Director, and approved by the mayor. So it's not quite as easy as one would think of, do we declare a snow emergency or not? Oops. Okay, it's going a little crazy here. So, okay, I want to go back to the snow. This is the one I wanted. So everybody here, I'm guessing, knows what our snow emergency phases are. And we have, in City of St. Paul, a snow emergency is 96 hours. So for the first part, starting at 9 o'clock, we have our night plow route, our night plow phase, from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that was when all the trucks are out on the arterial and collector streets and 1/2 of the north-south residential streets. So if you see in St. Paul, one side usually says, no parking this side of the street, the other one is got no signs. So one side's a night plow route, the other side's a day plow route. And then at 8 a.m., we go into our day plow phase. 8 a.m. to about 5 p.m. is typically a day plow phase. And then we will finish up the other half of the north-south residential streets and all of the east-west residential streets. So again, in the first 24 hours of snow emergency, our crews plow all 1,800 lane miles in St. Paul. That's driving here to Anaheim, California. That's a long trip. And then we spend that next 72 hours is our cleanup phase. So, and again, we work with a lot of you alley captains on pushbacks or abandoned cars, cleanup or replows. That's what we do for that next 72 hours. One of the things I want to point out real quick here is I want to put a plug for our snow emergency map, parking map. Has anybody seen or used our snow emergency parking map on the web? Okay. If you do one thing, please go on the website and check out the snow emergency parking map. It is a great tool that tells you what phase we are in of the snow emergency, and it will actually show you with red, green, or sometimes yellow lines of where you can park on the streets in your neighborhood. So it is a great tool for your neighbors. And it's something that you might want to add in some letters and remind people that tool is there and ask them to sign up for snow emergency alerts. But that snow emergency parking map is a really handy, easy tool to see what phase we're in and where people can park and move and park their cars. So let's talk a little bit about SALT. SALT is a really important tool for public safety and because it melts ice. But we in St. Paul are also very careful with how we use salt because it is a toxic pollutant to our water, lakes, rivers, streams. And once it gets in there, we're very aware that it's nearly impossible to get out. So we're very careful about how we use salt to make them safe, but not overusing salt. All of our staff does the smart salting trainings by Minnesota Pollution Control Agencies, and they are amazing advocates for our environment because they don't want to oversalt. And as people are always saying, we want more salt, we want more salt, we will use it sparingly because we know that it is an important tool, but we cannot overuse it because of the effects that it has on the environment. So again, one of the things that we do is we use brine. So we make our own brine here, which is just a salt water mix. And you can see the brining truck downstairs, but there's a picture of it right there. And for a snow emergency, we do about 500 gallons. And this is really an important tool because it actually uses less salt and it pre-treats the streets so that the snow doesn't stick. And that's a great tool that has worked really well. The challenge with brine is that if we get any precipitation, which we had a bunch this past year, we can't use brine because it's just going to wash right off the street and down into the storm drains. So we can only use the brine when it's going to be snow. And if we're going to get any rain or really wet, it's not going to work well. We have two different types of salt. We do have treated salt, but really when it starts getting down into those single digits, the salt doesn't become as effective as, again, most of you know that. But again, this is a really important tool for us. So the next question is really, I skipped through it, is why do plows not go to the pavement on residential streets, or why did a plow drive by my street with its blade up? So again, we talked about residential streets, keeping them safe and passable, and we really only do plow residential streets during snow emergencies. I say that with a little caveat that we have done more residential plowing in the last couple of years than we have before because it's needed. And so we're continuing to do that. But the one thing is that our plow, and I know there's maybe some drivers out here, and Shane, you can yell at me if I'm saying this wrong, but they're float blades. They're not downward pressure blades. So people, it's pushing it and moving it. It's not digging and scraping it, if that makes sense on that one. So again, we're not going to get to the pavement on every time on a residential street. Also, we have, for night plow routes and day plow routes, there are 35 routes. They start all over the city at the same time. And so with these routes, they are optimized for right-hand turns because of the plow and where we push snow. And so if you were to see a route map, it would not look very logical for common sense. So if you see a plow on your street over, you think, oh, they're going to be on my street next. Not necessarily. They could be going somewhere else, and there could be another plow crisscrossing. So just, again, be aware that just because a plow is driving with their blade up doesn't mean they're not working. They're just probably going to where they need to go. And I know it is hard sometimes for our drivers to not want to get in there and clean things up along the way and do what they need to do, but they also have to keep going, and we've got a whole city to plow. The other thing that's really important with plowing is that there is an art and a science to it. And there's a certain speed that the plows need to go to kind of push and lift the snow up and get it onto the boulevard. And when we get a lot of snow and those mounds on the boulevard get higher, for all of us, it's heavier to lift that snow out there. And sometimes our plows can't go as fast as they really need to for that lift, and that it will start creeping off those corners. So they really do their best to get it to the curb and off the curb and into the boulevard. One of the other challenges for our plow drivers is that all of the boulevards, block to block, are a little different. Sidewalks are different. So they try really hard not to throw the snow on sidewalks, especially when they see people out there shoveling the sidewalks. They're not trying to bury anybody. They really aren't. And I know that I know they hate it when they're like, oh gosh, they're going to think I did this on purpose, and there's nothing intentional. But again, just keep in mind that those boulevards get really full because that's a lot, or where people are putting their snow as well. Your alley or your plow alley folks we're all sharing that really narrow boulevard space. And I know we're asking you to put your garbage carts and your recycling carts in that space sometimes as well. So we just have to share that space a lot. One of the things that we could really ask people to do is that when people shovel their sidewalk, as much as they can put in their private yard, really helps everybody out. That's one little thing that if everybody could put it in their yard side versus the boulevard side, that gives everybody a little bit more room to work with. So I'm going to skip some of the challenges right now. I'm sure this is going to be a question of why can't we plow like Roseville or Maplewood, and I'll do a little spoiler on this one. The big difference is, honestly, on-street parking. Again, many of our suburban neighbors have winter parking bans. And with that, the plows can get to the curb. Also, a lot of our suburban neighbors don't have sidewalks, and so they can really throw that snow into the yard and that right of way and not worry about sidewalks. So there's sorry, I keep hitting that button. There's a lot of different things and different techniques that suburban plowing can do that we can't do as much. Like one of them that's mentioned there is benching. So when those snow plows, the piles get high, like my mom lives in Roseville and there's no sidewalk there. When they were really high, they came by with a wing plow, basically cut that in half, pushed more of it in her yard, and it left more space for snow. So we can do some benching here in St. Paul, but not a ton. And we do it where we can. Also in our suburban neighbors, the county and state plow their roads. Again, as I mentioned here in St. Paul, we plow those roads. Okay, so the question, why don't you ticket and tow more cars? Well, we talked a little bit about, again, we ticketed and towed over 20,600 cars last year. And I'm going to put a plug in here. Here's your opportunity for all your neighbors, anybody who's interested, sign up to be a snow ticketer. We're hiring right downstairs. You can fill out the application. You can go online and be a seasonal on-call staff. So for the city public works, we do hire snow tickers that are, again, on call when we declare a snow emergency. They come in and they work the snow emergency. We also do work with the St. Paul Police Department. The parking enforcement officers also do come out and help ticket and tow cars during snow emergencies. So we need about 70 ticketers. If we were fully staffed, 70 ticketers per shift. And the way that we do it with our ticketers is that we like to send 2 ticketers out on every route. So night plow routes are 35 night plow routes, 35 day plow routes. And the ticketers are actually going out on the exact routes that our plows are driving. And so here's a little behind the scenes secret. The ticketers are out there at 9 o'clock when the night plow route goes into effect. They're out there and they're starting to ticket. And they're going to keep going, and we send the plows out just a little bit later. Depending on the weather, it's usually between 10, 10:30. So at some point, though, our plows are going to pass the ticketers. And unfortunately, the tow trucks can't get all those cars out of the way before our plows get it. But our ticketers will keep going down, and our tow trucks will keep towing as much as we possibly can. Also with towing, the other thing that I hear every year is they only tow the ones closest to the impound lot over towards the state fair. Again, not true. We actually have 4 towing zones, and the contractors have to stay in those zones. So they are towed from all over the city. It's not just the ones that are closest to the impound lot. So I just want to share that tidbit right there. So I'm going to skip ahead because this is my kind of final slide, and then I want to jump into the questions from all of you. So how can you help? The biggest thing as alley captains is you have the connections with your neighbors. And if you can make sure, and I know you're probably working with them to make sure that they're moving their cars so your streets can get plowed as well, making sure that they're signed up for the snow emergency alerts and texts. We have them available in 5 different languages. We have snow brochures in 7 different languages on our website, so if there's other languages that you need, let us know, and we'll work with you to try to get those translated into other languages. Make sure that a lot of you are sharing this information when you declare a snow emergency. I don't know if you have email lists of your neighbors as well. If you want to throw that out there, that would be great. And then also, again, that snow emergency parking map. That is such a critical tool and a resource that we're really getting a lot of great feedback on from people who are using it of where and when they can move their car. Also, during the night and day plow phase, with ticketers and towing. So if you call us I'm going to put this a little crudely, don't call us during night and day plow phases, please, because all of our snow plows are out, and all of our ticketers are out on the routes. We don't have extra people who are just able to handle complaints here and there. They're all focused on the routes. So if you've got cars that didn't move, you need to call us during that cleanup phase. Because with ticketers, that's the time that we're going to go back and we're going to get what we call snowbirds, the people who didn't move their cars. We're looking for those cars. So please give us a call during the cleanup phase. Also, if somebody moves their car and you've got that big spot, like that other picture, call us during the cleanup phase after the day plow phase so that we can come and we will do what's called a pushback and clean and push that snow back up onto the curb. So again, if you can kind of let people know that's the time to give us a call, and that's what we're out doing. We're getting the cars that didn't move, and we're cleaning up the streets and pushing back snow throughout the city. So that would really help. The other thing is, I know our garbage and recycling folks are here today with us downstairs. Please make sure that garbage carts and recycling carts are not in the street and that they are on the boulevard. And we are working with our haulers to make sure that they put them back on the boulevard as well, because I know a lot of you do put them on the boulevard and they end up back in the street. So we are working with our haulers on that, and that's something we can all keep an eye on. So with that, right now, I'm going to take a breather, and we have a couple more minutes, and I know you've got questions out there, and if there's questions online. So what are you dying to know of what we do, what we don't do, why we do what we do?
I'll be a runner with the mic.
Thanks.
I would like to know how much revenue you get from the ticketing and towing.
Fantastic question, and that is nothing. Well, it's not quite nothing. So let me go back to ticketing. So down at the bottom here, a parking ticket is $56, and the majority of that goes to the county. The city does get a small portion of that ticket fee back, but the majority of it goes for the counting, to the county for all the prosecution pieces of it. The impound fee of $275.08. So if somebody's car is towed, $275.08 is what they're going to pay. And if they don't get it right away, it's an extra $15 a day. That money goes to the tow companies. Most of it goes to the tow companies, and a little bit, a portion of that also goes to the police department for running the impound lot. So to be honest with you, ticketing and towing is not a revenue generator for the city. Right,
Here, I can come. Sorry. You just have to hold your hands high, folks, and I'll get there.
I got a few questions, but I'll just focus on this. Side note, impound fee, do you know if they're still only taking cash, or if people get their cars towed, can they have alternative? I mean, when it gets to that point, what could they pay with? I'd like to let them know, just.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what they take. I think it's on the website.
They do take credit cards.
I believe they do take credit cards,
So
yeah.
that's a recent change.
Yeah.
Regarding, you said having people become ticketers. I assume you offer training, and does that cover like generally there's going to be some interactions, and what about what to do when there's going to be that eventual confrontation?
Yes, so
Safety.
the question is, do we, with our ticketers that we're hiring, do we offer training, and is there some support when there's dealing with some of the residents when they're out ticketing? Is that your question? Okay. Yes, absolutely. Everybody will be trained on how to write the tickets and how to, you're paired up with somebody who's been doing it for a while, so you're not out on your own, and you are partnered up with somebody. And when you go out, there is also some rules of engagement. And really, if you're being, I hate to say it, if you're being harassed by people, just leave the situation. One of the things with our ticketers is that once ticketers start writing a ticket, they legally have to finish writing the ticket. They can't say, nope, I'll just rip that up. They have to actually legally finish writing that ticket. So unfortunately, so yes, there's plenty of training and some resources.
And do you get equipment? Is it like a printer, iPad, tools, or is it manual? Do you have a little old carbon copy?
It's an old, so the question was, what is the equipment that you use when you're writing a ticket? And it is actually a carbon pad that's handwritten. We are working with the county and others to get electronic ticketing. So again, the ticketing process is not a fast process for writing that ticket. And you do not have to use your own car. We do have rental vehicles that we bring in. So people are not using their own cars for that. Here's another question over here.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to put the microphones kind of in your face, just so it can get on it can be picked up. So bear with me.
Yeah, that's okay. One of the cool things about St. Paul is we have a lot of educational institutions, but they're a cause of a lot of cars that are in the wrong place and people who don't shovel. And I like all your social media, how do you talk to the colleges so when they get new freshmen, they know the rules?
Fantastic questions. We do have a lot of, the question is how do we work with some of the higher education institutions in St. Paul? We have a lot of them here. And thankfully, we try to work and reach out to them and try to connect with the right individuals to pass information along to new students, the snow brochures, the information, things like that. A lot of the colleges and universities do actually a really nice job of following our social and get our texts and alerts and then put that out on their student channels as well. So again, we always, that's something that we continue to try to work with and build those relationships year after year. But again, a lot of them really try to be good partners with that because honestly, they don't like those complaints from the neighbors either. Great question. Question back there. Getting your steps, Beth.
Awesome. Thank you. I love it.
Hi. I was trying to figure out, doing some research as to why we don't have the city doing the alley plowing.
All right, that's a fantastic question. The question is why, doing some research on why the city does or does not do plow the alleys. First and foremost, I really highly encourage you to look on the website under stpaul.gov/alleys. In 2019, we partnered with the University of Minnesota, and we did actually a big survey and a research study with the University of Minnesota. Sent out surveys and questionnaires to residents, and this is a highly controversial topic in St. Paul. There are folks that say, stay out of it. We don't want you touching our alleys. We want to do it ourselves. And then there's the others that say, come in and plow our alleys. So there is really great information in there from that research and the surveys that were done in 2019. Again, highly encourage you to take a look at that. One of the big things is, again, as I mentioned, there's 2,225 alleys, 330 miles. So again, there's obviously a staffing challenge with that right now, right? The other thing is, again, with a lot of you working with contractors, most of them, I'm guessing, are trucks with plows on it. Our big tandem trucks will not go down those alleys. They will not go down those alleys. So again, we're not equipped right now, so there would be a big systematic change for us to do that from a staffing and equipment perspective. But again, highly recommend people check out that information.
First, there's a question in the back, and then I'll work my way up there.
Sounds great.
Last year for one of the snow emergencies, they coordinated some off-street parking for folks. Have you guys looked into doing that again in either like in neighborhoods or around the city?
Yes, this is the question is have we offered with that big snowstorm that was coming some off-street parking and coordinated off-street parking areas. So I just want to let people know that there have been 3 parking ramps downtown that have a $5 in and out overnight fee for overnight parking. Highly recommend people use it. I know it's not as super convenient to drop off your car and then have to go get it, but it's better than than getting a ticket in a tow for certain. Last year, we also worked with parks to try to open up some of the park rec parking lots. I know that we are kind of exploring that. It really kind of depends on what's going to be happening and if those parking lots are going to be needed to be used and how we get those parking lots plowed, because as I mentioned, Parks actually comes over and helps us with snow emergencies. So from a resource standpoint, there is a little bit of a challenge there. We've been talking with faith organizations and schools and things like that to try to use their parking lots. But again, a lot of the times that people are plowing those lots are during those over evening hours. And so we haven't found a good place for people to park their cars, but we're open to that. And if you have ideas, if you know of them, please let us know, because we're certainly willing to work with people. It's just that there really isn't a lot of places that the city doesn't have any extra lots. They're all kind of private. So we're open to talking to anybody who's willing to work with us on that. Great question.
There's a question right over here, and then I can work my way up there.
Do you know how many of the 2,225 alleys in St. Paul have alley captains and are being actively plowed by a contractor?
Fantastic question. The answer is we don't know how many of you are out there. We don't know which alleys are being plowed by either private contractors or by somebody who lives on the alley. So we're really excited because this is kind of our first attempt to connect with alley captains and find out how many there are of you and where you all are, because we honestly don't know. It's not something we connect, we track, and as you know, it changes. Some of you have been doing it 25, 30 years, I know. Some of you, it's your first time. But so no, this is our first opportunity. That I'm really hoping that we get more people to sign up so we can kind of maybe stay in touch in the future.
Well, I have a suggestion about that.
Great.
We have, I don't know how many district councils in the city, and 18, thank you. And we're here from Mac Groveland District Council, and that is such a great, every district council's a great resource. We can connect all through the city, just through this. So I think that's a great idea to try to really focus on asking the district councils for help, because we'd love to help you. We're here for you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
We just lost our contractor, and how do I find another one? Because he came just by chance, so I have no idea what to do.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the alley captain. It's a fantastic question. I'm gonna leave that because after me at 10 o'clock here is going to be a fabulous panel of 5 alley captains who are brilliant, and they can answer your questions. I think maybe between them, they almost have 100 years of experience alley capting. They're pretty awesome. So I'm going to leave that question for them. I will let you know that some of our plow contractor friends have kind of reached out, and they're aware of the Snow Summit. And so my guess is that they'll be kind of hanging around maybe the alley captain corner downstairs, and maybe a few will be passing out business cards. But I encourage you to connect with other alley captains on that one. Oh, there's the question.
Hi, I was just wondering how St. Paul utilizes sanding as part of its winter snow response, or if it doesn't, why not?
Yeah, great question. We do have a little bit of sand. We typically do not use a lot of sand. And the reason we don't use sand is that a couple reasons. One, it doesn't melt ice. And then the second thing is that really when you put down sand and a few people drive over it, it just pushes it to the curb. It doesn't stick. So we will put down some sand when the temperatures are below 0 and we need to get a little traction going in intersections or things like that. But otherwise, we really don't use a lot of sand in St. Paul for that reason, because it ends up in our storm sewer system and causes larger issues. But that does remind me, one of the things that we absolutely do is with our sand, is we pre-wet it. So when it's coming out of the sanding trucks on the back, it's actually a pre-wet, which is really important because it stays in the drive lanes then. It kind of sticks it, so it's sticking there. And then eventually, as cars, it will kind of push it out into those parking lanes and then start working on the parking lanes. But again, we pre-wet it so it sticks in the drive lanes where we want it, so we don't have to use as much. Any more? Oh, there's a question all the way in the back. Chase, do we have any questions online? Okay, great.
I'm curious if there's anything like between what we're doing now and plowing all the alleys that could be offered to the alleys as I don't know if it, like you guys are the experts, maybe you've thought of something, but what comes to mind as an example would be like a midwinter, like on a heavy snow winter, a midwinter opportunity for alleys to opt in to like a one-time, have our alley plower push all the snow to a place that it's usually not allowed, and then the city can like remove it, like happens downtown or something.
Yeah, that brings up a really great point and something we can certainly explore. I want to be really clear that the city, we don't remove a whole heck of a lot of snow. Again, we're putting it in the boulevards and things like that as much as possible. We remove snow off of bridge decks and sidewalks, or bridge decks and sidewalks, because there's not anywhere for it to go, right? We will remove snow from bike lanes, bike lanes and in-street bike lanes when it gets high enough and we can't get it onto the curb. And we do remove some snow downtown, and that's a contract we have with downtown businesses. So otherwise, we're just like the private plow folks and all of you, again, we really are sharing that space on the boulevard to put all of our snow. So yeah, we don't remove a whole ton of it. I don't know if that fully answered your question, but we can keep looking into ideas. So I want to be, one more.
We just have one more question in the back, Lisa.
Fantastic.
Have you considered compiling a list of contractors with prices for pricing transparency, similar to the list for the sewer contractors that you provide?
Yeah, unfortunately, the short answer is no. And the private plow folks, first, they do not have to be licensed, so we don't have any kind of tracking mechanism to make sure that they're licensed or any of that. And as many of you are finding, there's a lot of fluid movement in the private plowing, and we want to make sure, as a city, we have a kind of a fiduciary responsibility that we're not promoting one or another, and that if that list isn't complete, we've run into some challenges with that. So unfortunately, no, that's not something we would compile or track. But again, connecting with other alley captains, that's something that I think you can certainly chat with other folks and see what they're paying and how and what that can be. So I hope that answers that question.
I'm going to go to one more question, but I will tell you that my department is Human Rights, Equal Economic Opportunity, and we're referred to as HERO, and we have a program called the CERT program, and that program is to certify small business, women-owned, BIPOC-owned businesses in the city of St. Paul, and we currently do not have any plow companies in the CERT program, but if a plow company wants to get in the CERT program, we will have a list of them online. So encourage all of your plow drivers to contact HERO, HREEO, and get in the CERT program, and then you'll be able to get lists very easily.
As a provider, I'd like to bolster what Lisa said as far as we plow snow. We don't remove snow. And it's really helpful when the neighbors can get out there with their big 2-stage snow blowers and push that snow back, especially with a challenging year like we had last year with 90 inches of snow. Those alleys got real narrow, real fast, and anything that can help. Again, we plow the snow. We don't remove the snow.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up right there for this presentation.